Hello all, it's ArtisanTony, and this is going to be a quick review of Sonoran Desert Institute's FAT 100 and FAT 105. I know what you're thinking. You're doing this in your truck? But yes, I am. I finished these two units. I guess these two are 2 units from a larger set of classes for the advanced gunsmithing certificate. But today's Father's Day. I gotta go do some stuff for that. I think I can do this in about 15 minutes. We're gonna find out. Here are my notes, and technically the courses are called Firearms Technology 1. They refer to it as FAT 100, and Introduction to Firearms, which they designate as FAT 105. And I've just made some notes here that I'm going to go over. I just feel like if I need to do this while it's fresh in my mind. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time in each of these manuals because that would take a lot of time, but I will show you the table of contents here. And so in this one, we basically had the introduction to firearms, types of firearms, firearm fundamentals, setting up your shop, gunsmithing tools and their uses, and firearm identification, which I found to be very cool. You might think, well, that sounds boring, but honestly, let's see if I can flip to it. Yeah. When you start looking at all the cool markings, the proof marks, it's very interesting to me. I know that might seem weird to you, but that's the table of contents for FAT 105, and the contents for Firearms Technology FAT 100 is that. Let's look at that. Table of contents. Rebarreling and head spacing, chambering, free boring, trigger work, shotgun chambers, chokes and ribs, custom fitting the shotgun, restoring rifles and shotguns, barrels, making and replacing obsolete gun parts. I'm trying to read through the through the viewfinder, but again, very, very good. And I don't want to get into too much detail because I've got things I want to say about these as I go through. I just wanted to show you the table of contents. The first thing I wanted to do was just to talk about the platform itself a little bit, and the obvious differences between online education versus a live classroom. To give you just a little short history of myself, I've taken many online courses for my professional career, which I don't really share that much, honestly. I try to keep my channel entertaining, and that stuff might tend to bore you to tears. But I've been in my industry all my life. I've been in the construction business since I was able to walk. My dad, was in it, and I would go out in the summers and work, whatever. When I was in high school, I went to a building trade school in high school. Left there, started my own framing crew, blah, blah, blah. We're talking, 40 years worth of history. But along the way, I always felt it was important to educate yourself. So I've always taken continuing education courses. I've had classes at state community colleges, a multitude of things, again, that would bore you to death. I'm a certified building inspector. I have a certification through the Construction Specifications Institute. After a certain point in time, you stop putting letters after your name because it looks ridiculous. So I don't even do it. The reason I mention all that is because I do have some experience with online education. And to date, I will say that honestly, Sonoran Desert Institute's platform is pretty good. It's probably one of the best. Now, technology has improved, and which has made, this sort of thing easier, but still, when you look at the ease of use of the platform, their online platform, it's very to the point. The navigation is good. You go in, your student login, you know where you've been, you know where you're going for that particular course, that particular unit, I should say. And that's very good. So the reason I had, on my notes versus live classroom is because you have to go into the online education with the right mindset, in that you will be using that online education to further or introduce you to an industry, or a trade or whatever, a skill that later you will become involved with in real life. The intent is not for you to learn how to be a gunsmith, 100% of it online. And I see some criticisms, of this, and those particular people just need to realize that, you have to look at the big picture and what the intent is. So, but overall, I will say that Sonoran Desert Institute's platform, online platform, is probably one of the best. So, coming to content, which is really where this course excels, honestly. The content is really, in a nutshell, it's hard to place in a nutshell. I mean, you're talking about at every turn, you're encouraged to understand the history of the firearm. You're shown the function, the operation of different types of firearms. You even get into shop setup and business aspects and the additional resources. Good Lord, I could do a whole video review just on the additional resources. The additional resource tab was a tab you clicked on for each week, and there would be videos and articles you would read as a part of the course that week. And funny enough, Eric of Iraq Vet 8888 was a lot of that content. They had videos they had made which were very well done, and Eric's really well respected. And the articles were very cool also, articles that I had not read before. And funny enough, some of the videos are older videos of Eric's, and I had not seen those either. So the content it's heavy on content. I don't know what else to say there. Let me see if I can look up a few of these other things I was talking about. Here's, applying for your FFL. That in these sections, setting up your shop, there's layouts and floor plans of different sizes of shops. And I guess my point of showing that was that the course is not just about learning the action of a Smith & Wesson or whatever. There's business aspects that, how to set up a shop, how to apply for your FFL. There's, different statistics, business statistics in there. And just pretty good. The content is really good. I tried to come up with a category I called delivery, just how was the course delivered to you? And I was going to make a joke. It comes in a big box, which it does. I mean, the course materials, I'll put a link here to the video I made just on the course materials in the library themselves. That would be another whole video, which it is, and I'll show you the link there. But the tools that you get with the course, the gun that you pick a kit, an AR-15 or an AR-10. I think there's a 1911 kit. Basically, each of those table of content items would be, say, a unit for that week, and you would watch a video. You would read the material from the manual or other articles or whatever other content. There's other things in the library, other books, and then you would do a reflection, 400 word or 450 word reflection on that. You would do an article summary, basically you've got 2 papers, you would have to write each week. You would submit those, your instructor grades those, and then they come back to you, and the instructors are good people. Kip Carpenter was the last instructor I had for, I think it was 105. He was timely, a good guy. He's actually in a couple of the videos, I think Introduction to Firearms, and so you get to see him. But again, if you're an old timer like me, I'm not that old, I'm 53, but you're used to learning. I'm a very visual learner and hands-on learner, so you have to go into this with the proper expectations. I found myself frustrated several times, but I've narrowed that down to the fact that I learn better by putting my hands on things. And if you're like that, just have a little patience, and you can get through it. And then once you're through it, you'll realize that you've still benefited from it. Time, the great healer and taker of life. I remember when Zeke asked me, by the way, thank you, Zeke Stout. You may know him from Talking Lead. I remember when he first asked me to audit this course, I was like, oh, that's no big deal, sure, And when I got into it, I was like, oh boy, this is going to require some time. And really, to give you an idea of how much time you need to allocate, really a day a week, a whole day. I mean, I guess I'm a slow reader, but sometimes you're reading 30, 40 pages, which would take me an hour or whatever. Then you'd watch a video that was 30 or 40 minutes. Then it probably took me an hour each to write each paper. So that's another 2 hours. Now this is me, okay? You may be faster at this stuff. I'm also a 2-finger typer. So then each week there's a little exam you have to take, which is, it's very short. There is a final exam at the end of each unit. At the end of 100 and 105, there's a 80-question exam. But the ones that during each week are small. I think they're 10 questions. So they're easy to get through, but still it's time. And then, of course, I was making videos. I probably have 6, 8, 10 videos where I have a series going called SDI Inspired Gunsmithing, where I work on guns, but they're inspired. I mention SDI and the tools I'm using and the techniques and that kind of thing. So the amount of time for me is probably about a day and a half a week. You need to kind of get a quick assessment of how much time it will take you, because if you're like me, that's quite a bit of time. That's probably 30 to 40 days for these 2 units. That's 30 to 40 days not being with my bees or with my business or with my family, because I would lock myself in my office. I would tell my family to leave me alone, for that time, because I'm one of those people, when I'm reading, I really have to concentrate. I'm a hands-on guy. When I read, I have to concentrate on each word. I have to, the meaning of each word, and I have to try to absorb it. So that maybe a little bit harder for me than it is for you. And don't let that discourage you. I'm just saying you will need to allocate some time. You'll be very frustrated, and you need to budget that time every week, and you need to set it aside. Because what happened to me was very early on, I didn't set aside time. I got behind. I was able to get caught up recently. I did finish this 105 on time. It was June 14th was the completion date, and I finished it by June 12th. Okay, so if I was truly auditing this course, then I feel I have the responsibility to give my suggestions. So here I go. And you know how we are. We like to come up with some sort of little theme. So I have the 3 C's, and they are cost, communication, and community. These are not criticisms. These are just my suggestions from my perspective, only taking FAT 100 and FAT 105. This reminds me, there's this thing I call the common man problem. and that is that if you're like me, you're midway through life. Hopefully I'm only midway. And you have your career established, and you have your the revenue or your income established, and you're sort of in this cruising mode with your life, then it's difficult to come up with the money for this course. It's rather expensive. Okay, now there are loans and grants, like there's the GI Bill for vets, which I think is excellent that the GI Bill can be used for this course, because it would be perfect for a vet if that's something he wanted to do after coming out of the service. That would be an excellent way to market himself. That's the experience a lot of people have, and it would be great. And they have the GI Bill, but the common man problem is it's really more personal than it is probably for a lot of other people, because obviously if you're going to take this course, you have an interest in becoming a gunsmith. So for me, the common man problem was the amount of money and time invested in a career that is just really a hobby. That's what it boils down to for me. The amount of time and money invested that I would have to invest in a whole, the entire course, the entire advanced gunsmithing course, I'm not sure I can actually recoup that in my lifetime, because it would just be a hobby. Even if I, did a project for, someone a couple of months, it would take me for the rest of my life to recoup the money, that's invested in this kind of thing. So for me, it's just a hobby. What I would love to do, honestly, my goals are to, when I retire from construction, that's a pipe dream, isn't it? But if I am able to retire, I would set up a little shop, which I would already have basically set up, and I would just start building custom firearms. Anyway, that may not be a problem that a lot of people run into, but it is an issue. The cost is an issue. It's going to be for some people. I know the problem is there's no way for a person like me to understand what SDI has invested, their development costs for this course, their overhead costs, all of that. I have no idea. So they may not be able to become more competitive on the pricing, but that would be a goal. Anyway, another suggestion is that if there could be more two-way communication between the instructor and the student. This goes back to the problem you have with with online platforms. So it's endemic to all online education, not just Sonoran Desert Institute, but they could make themselves rise above the others. What I thought would be kind of cool is if the instructors had a hangout for students. Now, they have these webinars that they do, but they're one way. They're SDI people and maybe a guest doing a webinar directed at you. I haven't seen anywhere they invite students to be a part of it. Maybe I just missed it. But what would be cool is if Kip Carpenter could do a hangout, even if it was just once a month, and students come, they're actually able to, like our hangouts in the gun community, where we all, actually are on in the hangout and we're talking and discussing things. That would be a way, I think, to create communication and community, which is kind of my next little subject. But as far as communication, if there was a way to poke students, maybe on a weekly basis, not rely so much on them coming to you, SDI, maybe you reach out to them. Last but not least, which is the most difficult, is how do you create community? I have had the same goal or same issue here on my website, gunsandgearvids.com, trying to create that community feel. And I've tried to do it through forums, and giveaways and, chat boxes. There doesn't seem to be any perfect way to do this. It's almost like it's a spontaneous thing that happens in any given area, site on the internet. If there was a way to let other students know, who are the students at SDI? I haven't even heard of one. Am I the only student at SDI? I know I'm not, but I don't know where they are. I don't know where they hang out. I don't know anything about them. I don't even know who the alumni are. How can you create this feeling that I'm part of a class of, 2016, I'm part of the graduating class? Now, I'm talking about from a student's perspective, right? From the people at SDI, they're looking back at us. They see all of us, but we don't see them. A thing I think would be very good is to have a forum on their website for students, and students can go and see who's out there, talk to other students. They might have questions. What I'm thinking about doing, and if there's any interest in this, I'm going to set up a forum just for SDI students at gunsandgearvids.com. If there's any interest, this would be outside of SDI, obviously. I don't think SDI would mind. But if anybody has any interest in that, because I'm always going to be happy to answer questions from students. And I do want to say a special thank you to Kip Carpenter and Mike Petronella, the two instructors. They did a really good job. They're very fair with me on my papers. I had to write 16 of them, and Mike was the instructor for the first course, 100, and Kip was the instructor for the 105, and I thought they did a really good job. I've enjoyed it up to this point. I feel like I've learned a lot, just like being in construction my whole life. I feel like I've been around, guns my entire life, but being around guns and shooting them, that doesn't really mean that you know much about them. That doesn't mean I know how the action works, a striker fired action, a slide, a double action, how that trigger, interacts with the sear and all, you know what I mean? All those internal things that you get. One thing I would like to do is inspire young people now not to do what I did. Don't just shoot guns. Every time you buy a gun or you have a gun, look at it. Look at the proof marks on it. Look at the manufacturer's name, the date, the serial number, the date it was, made, the model number. Turn it around, see if there's any proof marks on it. Very interesting stuff, really, when you think about it. Take it apart if it's your own, gun. Learn how it's made. Do research on it. Do this on every gun you come across, and while you're young. And as you get older, your knowledge base will build. You'll say, somebody will say, hey, what about that cap and ball gun, for 1802, and you'll say, oh, I know how that action, I remember how that works. That's kind of a weird example, but that's the kind of thing. If you start when you're young and you start learning the history, and I'm trying to think of a good example. Who's a good Matthew McNeil, Steve McNeil's son. I remember when I first met him, I was very impressed by his knowledge of history and just his overall knowledge and he was very young. And I thought, dang it, I wish I'd started when I was that young, So anyway, if you're older like me now and you want to learn, which I was very interested in doing, this is a good way to do it. If you can get past the cost of it, if you can, get past that and the time that you need to do it, it's an excellent course. So anyway, I hope that helps. If anybody has any comments or questions, put them below. And again, I will put up even if it's temporary, forum on gunsandgearvids.com. And if anybody has any questions about the course there and they're interested in having me answer them, I'll be happy to. And thanks again, guys, and good luck with your gunsmithing education, your firearms education. Thanks, guys. Nice.